What's going on out there? This is the Black Effect, the real Black Effect. And I want to ask you, is hip hop dead? Is it finally dead? Rap music, all form, like, do you think that it's dying or is it just dead? I would say that it's evolving and it's changing. The next rapper, I predict the next popular rapper that you see is going to be dressed up like he's going to be a rapper who is a believer. He's gonna be like a gospel rapper almost like a D1, or I'm not saying it's gonna be D1, but shout out to him. Somebody like that, a Piper Jean. It's gonna the next big thing in hip hop is going to be Lord willing. This is what I see. It's gonna be a rapper who is a Christian rapper more than that's gonna be rapping about God more than Tupac. Tupac was a rapper he was a gangster rapper, but he was also a rapper who always mentioned God, like he was a spiritual artist. You have those like that, man. You gonna have Hebrew Israelite rappers coming. I heard some Hebrew Israelite rappers who actually is going a lot harder than some of these rappers you hear today. You know, Hebrew Israelite rappers. They going a lot harder. A lot of these Christian rappers, man, they can spit. Like they can spit rhymes. They not whack. And they're coming up and changing. They not just letting you put them in a box anymore. Because right now, don't nobody want to hear a bunch of stuff they can't relate to. People like they see what's happening in the world. More people are waking up, you know what I'm saying, to the coming to the Lord. You see this all over the internet, more young people are, waking up. They're going across preaching the gospel, they making music, they on fire for the Lord. I think it's a beautiful thing that there definitely should be, more of our people, black folks, the true chosen people of God come into part of the people who are part of the tribes of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of Judah. These people weren't white. Y'all need to, start to take your power back, man. That's why, we need to stop calling these young dudes YNs, stop calling them young niggas. These are young kings, man. They just need guidance. They need the Most High. Without the Most High, then you just reduced to, you give up your kingship. You just reduced and get treated how you get treated, by this world. Look down upon, trying to have people manipulate you and do all these things. But with hip hop, like, look at who wants to follow crash outs and look, man, hip hop was getting bad, during the drill era. When that was happening, all of that was going on. Yeah, you had the older artists and stuff, and you had, a small number of alternative artists or rappers who were just doing straight hip hop. But man, it was full of wannabe gangster rappers slash crash outs slash burnouts. You ain't never seen so many in that era. In that era, man, you saw so many people passing out in interviews, throwing up in interviews. They couldn't make it through interviews. You never saw that. Even in my era, the heightened era of the gangster rap, where Snoop Dogg was, Dr. Dre them, and Tupac was running the game, Puff Daddy was, Biggie Smalls, man, people wasn't getting high on their own supply. It was bad. And that was just, God showing you like the emphasis and where this thing is gonna go. Like this is what that era taught the young people. The era of Tupac and all that. That's what we taught the younger people. That's what they got from it. Because that's the things that, the Snoop Dogg, women ain't nothing, bees ain't S. Talking about just treating women like our sexual objects, like they nothing, having a era of young men just hating each other, just competition upon competition, like having a group of young men drunk and high all day, thinking that that's something they're going to leave to an example to show their sons, like how DMX, was, just on drugs, for a long time. He was, Lord rest his soul, I think. But DMX, I definitely know that he was into the Lord. That DMX used to pray on stage. Again, People like him, people like DMX and Tupac are shades of what you're gonna see today rise up and be, what's popular in rap. Look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z can't even put out an album. Man, do you think Jay-Z was really doing all that stuff, man? Do you think Jay-Z was the biggest drug dealer? Look, I believe what you want. But he can't he's in allegations with P. Diddy and stuff like that. Jay-Z can't even put out an album right now. He's in allegations, man. He frustrated with that. And I understand, like, he worried about those things, which he should be, you know. But don't nobody want to hear about crashing out. Don't nobody want to hear about hating their brother. Yo, I gotta roll with the switch. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Man, don't nobody want to hear that. That's not progressive. We want to hear something progressive, man. We want to hear something leading us to the kingdom. We want to hear something that's gonna uplift us. You know what I'm saying? For before we go to work. That'll be something totally different. And do you understand that spirit of change our whole community? We still gonna be dope. We still gonna be, the Lord, Yahweh Shai, Jesus is what Yahweh Shai, man, ain't nothing doper than that. I ain't gonna lie, I don't agree with the whole message of the Hebrew Israelites whatsoever. But look at them. You know what I'm saying? Look at the power that they command just by having the word. Just because don't nothing that from God come back void. Nothing that you put out there from the Lord come back void. Look at the power they command. At least they know who they are in Christ. They may not have the full message of the gospel talking about, how they feel about other races and being racist. But other than that, which is a huge thing that they need to drop, and understand. But they commanding out there showing you how you need to be. Like, you need to command more power and stop being weak, as us in our culture. Like, don't get me wrong. Getting ain't nothing, like I said, like LL Cool J said, getting money ain't wrong. You know what I'm saying? But it's the way that you went about it. Like, people sold our community out. People like Puff Daddy, man, he sold our community out. And Puff Daddy ran the rap game for a long time. Like, behind the scenes, he was the one who okayed what was dope. He was the one, now he's in jail. The Lord put them, where he need to be. From what they say about Biggie Smalls, Tupac, you don't get away with anything. R. Kelly is in there. Now, it's time for a revival and a new spirit to come upon our people. And you know what I'm saying? And they putting out music. When you putting out this stuff into the universe, why you want to put out stuff talking, promoting violence, promoting, I sold 1 million drugs. And you know what I'm saying? Like how Pusha T was rapping, like Pusha T was talking about selling drugs for forever. Like, bro, you ain't even doing this no more. Why you trying to promote this? They got him, and look at what people saying is about him, saying he was handling, women for the masters and all that, handling, young women, putting them out there. That's what they say, But the Clips, when they put out they put out one of the dopest albums that came out recently, and it was because of his brother Malice. Because Malice came in and brought the spirit of the Lord into the music. Look at what Mace can do. Mace will tear somebody up on the mic, bring the spirit of the Lord into it. We don't no longer will people of God allow you to put them in a box and be like they can't rap. People hated Christian rap, because it was so boxed in. It couldn't take the real beats, raw beats. They couldn't do certain things. Oh, you can't talk about this. You can't, man, beat it with that. The Lord talk about everything. You understand? You talk about whatever you want, as long as it's not promoting sin and promoting people going astray. If you're not doing that, you talk about your life. The life you live, giving your testimony, ain't nothing wrong with that. And rapping on, get you some dope beats. But you finna start seeing that. And and that spirit that's gonna come upon the people is gonna be something amazing. You're gonna start seeing black people changing. Because it's our music. Yeah, of course, blacks and Hispanics. That's what hip hop is. It's our music. Definitely for the brothers and sisters. So, and what we did, deem to be cool is gonna go across the world. We're gonna make Christ cool again. That's what Tupac did, DMX. at the end of the day, yeah, they talk, talk they other stuff, they talk. But when they was talking about the Lord, what nobody talking about, oh man, that's lame. Nobody. Not one soul. Even when Mace came out, Welcome Back, people sleeped on that, but he was still going hard. You understand? So that's what I see happening to the rap game. That's what I say. Like, it's that all that crash out stuff, that's dead. People listening, women try to take it for a minute, but don't nobody want to hear no prostitute rap. We don't want to hear women rapping, strip being selling us softcore pornography. We don't want to see them stripping, then taking off their clothes, then telling men, oh, you're never gonna get it. You're never gonna, like, you really defeating your whole purpose. So that's dead. The crash out rap is dead. Gangster rap was gone. That died with, like I said, a long time ago. Puff Daddy and them in jail. That's the last of it. Jay-Z ain't putting out nothing. Like these older rappers, Mano and 50 Cent and T.I. is putting out new albums. Like, these are older. Like, do you understand that these are grandpas? Like, do you understand that? So that's just what I say about it, man. I think hip hop is just taking an evolution into righteousness, and that's gonna be like, and once that standard is set, the bar, anything under that is gonna be the bar. Is gonna be it's gonna be a lesser form of hip. It's like it's gonna be degraded. It's like, so if you on here, the righteous standard is met, and then you come in here promoting sin and foolishness and crashing out and all this and satanic 6-7 stuff, hey, it's just gonna stand out. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be here. The other stuff's gonna be here, and then the righteous stuff is gonna be here, and then that satanic stuff is gonna be here. Now, people can choose to follow that. That's what people do every day. And they can get behind that, but you just gonna stand out, and we gonna know where you at with it, and we'll see the results that comes from that. Jail time. You ain't gonna see none of these other brothers doing no jail time, getting no caught up in those stings with underage girls and children, and doing no sacrificing and crashing out at her, in instance, being sick in interviews. You ain't gonna see that. So we'll see. But with that being said, it's the Black Effect, the real Black Effect. I'm gone.